the DNR is hosting the Festival of Trees, which is kind of like a Arbor Day, Arbor Month celebration, where they're going to have, trying to bring the community in. There's going to be a kids climb hosted by the University of Minnesota, where kids can put on a saddle, climb up a tree. There's volunteers helping them out, not just letting them go.
Knock yourselves out, kids.
The city, I believe, is going to bring their utility bucket truck down there and give bucket truck rides to kids, and probably adults too. So, and then there'll be a bunch of not vendors, but booths out there, informational booths about trees and all that stuff. So.
This is the Buffalo Community Podcast, all about the greatest small town in the USA, the people in it, and how it all works together. Here are your hosts, Tyler Reiss and Mark Benzer.
Another fun episode of the Buffalo Community Podcast. Got with us today, class of 2000 Buffalo High School graduate, Ryan Gustafson.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You bet. Got a couple of interesting topics to tackle today. One, touching on an upcoming event coming out to Sturges Park. Mm-hmm. And then also the dreaded emerald ash borer.
Yeah.
Has found its way into Buffalo, which was probably inevitable. But why don't we just kick things off with the good news, the fun stuff. What's happening up at Sturges Park?
All right. On Saturday, May 20th, the Minnesota Society of Arboriculture is hosting the Minnesota Tree Climbing Championship in Sturges Park. There'll be 50 climbers that'll be competing in 5 different events. And then the top 5 men climbers and top 5 women climbers will be competing on Sunday in the Masters Challenge to become the master climber. And then that winner... The male and female winners go to the International Climbing Competition, which I think is down in Albuquerque this year.
Oh, do they have to climb cactuses or something down there?
I think so, yeah.
I got a couple questions about that. A climbing competition, is it more challenging as it goes up? Is it fastest, or at the Nationals, do you get to fight Groot?
Yeah, the 5 different events that they have in the competition. There's a throw line competition where they have this little weighted ball and you have to throw it up over a branch and then set a rope, because that's how the climbers get up into the tree. Mm-hmm. There is an aerial rescue where they have a dummy that is injured in the tree and you have to climb up, get them safely down to the ground. There's a blade speed climb where it's kind of like rock climbing, where you have someone on the ground kind of tightening your rope and you just climb up the tree as fast as you can.
Blade. I thought it was blade. I thought, this sounds cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, when I say tree climbing competition, they think steel timber sports where you're spiking up poles, but there's no chainsaws, no big power equipment or anything like that. It's all just climbing. And then the other events, there's a work climb where they start at the top of the tree, have to hit 5 different stations in the tree and get down within a certain amount of time. And then a ascent event where they basically climb straight up a rope 50 feet as fast as they can.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
That's what I love about Buffalo is bringing unique events like that. I mean, tree climbing, the kite festival, even the cars. And Sturgis Park is a great avenue for that.
Absolutely.
So outside of that, so May 20th, make sure you guys go there. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your connection to Buffalo.
I moved to Buffalo in, I think, 94, 95, somewhere there. My mom got a job in Buffalo and we moved to town. Graduated from Buffalo in 2000, as Mark said. And I left for college for a few years, came back and never left, and really like it here and raising my kids here.
That sounds like a familiar pathway for many Buffalo graduates. Many Buffalo graduates. So how did you get started with the Minnesota Association or Society of Arboriculture?
So I went to college when I went to school, I was going to go for natural resources, not really sure which avenue, and I found they had an urban forestry degree. I went to Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and there was the Student Society of Arboriculture, which is a little student group, and got involved in that. And then after I graduated, each state or region of the country has their own chapter of the International Society of Arboriculture. So I got involved with the local chapter as I started working here, and now I'm currently vice president. And next year I'll be president for 2 years. And
4 more years.
Yeah.
4 more years.
What does the MSA do?
Yeah, MSA. So we're a big focus of ours is to educate the arboriculture industry, so providing educational opportunities for arborists throughout the state, and then providing education to homeowners and stuff like that about proper tree care and all that stuff.
I like that. Let's talk about emerald ash borer a little bit.
Yeah.
Proper tree care. That seems to be like a trigger term. And how bad is it? Is it bad? Is it what can happen?
Yeah, emerald ash borer is pretty bad. It kills ash trees. No ash tree they haven't found a resistant ash tree yet. So it starts in the top of the tree, and it's usually in the tree for 3 to 4 years, and then the tree really starts to decline and then dies. Ash tree is one of the most common trees in the landscape, just because you could plant it just about anywhere and it would grow and do fine.
Yeah.
So after the elms died in the 70s from Dutch elm disease, they replaced them with ash trees. So it's a big problem for a lot of communities because that's the most populated tree that they have in their communities.
Sure, and it definitely changes the landscape of a community too.
Yeah.
I know, you go down. I was a mailman, and there's this just beautiful. It was 4th Street. It doesn't mean anything to you guys, but they were redoing the sewer and water and everything, and they cut down all of these oak trees, and it just 100-year-old oak tree. I was like, oh man, but it just kind of looks meh after that. So
Yeah.
preventative. I mean, is there stuff for people to look out for? Or?
Yeah, there is treatments you can do to help protect your trees, and that's very effective. It's you inject it into the trunk of the tree, and it lasts for 2 years, but something you have to do every 2 years for basically the life of the tree. And you want to do that before your trees become infested with emerald ash borer. That's the best way.
Sure.
Because once they're already in there and damaging the tree, then the damage is already done. Signs of emerald ash borer, the biggest sign is woodpecker damage in the tree. If you start seeing what they call blonding, where the bark starts turning a blondish color in the upper canopy, that's woodpeckers going after the larvae of the beetle underneath the bark.
Okay.
And so you'll see a tree where it's like the ground is just covered with little things of bark, and that's pretty heavily infested ash tree.
Sure.
Do they attack other types of trees? Now that I'm looking at my
Stole
own
my
forest.
question.
Oh, sorry.
What is it?
Let's rewind it, Mark.
Well,
Ask that question. It was a good one.
What are they? I mean, what is it about that ash tree that attracts this bug?
It's just it's native to like Southeast Asia, Korea area, and it just evolved to feed on ash trees. But the ash there have a natural resistance, and so they can kill a tree here and there, but they've kind of grown up together. But the trees here don't have that resistance to it, and so they're just attracted to ash trees. They've been, evolved to just go after ash trees.
Huh.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Why don't we just take those China or Southeast Asia trees? Plant those.
I'm sure they're working on it.
Sure.
With elm trees, they've come out with resistant varieties of American elms, so I'm sure there's a lab somewhere working on resistant ash trees.
Okay. Sorry, it was just kind of seems simple, but then again, trying to plant billions of trees.
Right.
Yeah. Grow them over there. Let's ship them over here. So,
and no,
that's fine.
If you have an ash tree that you don't want to lose, definitely get it treated. I have 2 big ash trees that overhang my house or the back of my house and my deck. My wife wants me to cut it down because the house is too shaded and it drops branches on the tree or on the deck and everything. But I know how much it'll cost to remove those trees. And I'd rather treat it for a couple $100 every 2 years rather than, $5,000 to remove them.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll wait for the next tornado to take that tree down and let insurance take care of that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you know any good insurance agents?
I do.
Good ones? No.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mark.
You can. His mom,
yeah.
Cindy Lamont, is your mom, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Long-time
she's
State Farm,
agent here
and
in
that's what
Buffalo.
brought you guys to Buffalo. Is that?
Yep. Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. She's a great lady.
Yeah.
So it's $200 for the treatment, roughly?
Yeah, it's based on the diameter and how much product you have to put in the tree. So a really big tree, might be $300, but it lasts for 3 or 2 years.
Yeah, and I would imagine that's done by a professional.
Yeah.
Like you don't go to Menards and get it and inject your own tree.
No.
Size of the needle, just like
doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
No. There are products at Menards that they say you can put on the ground or any hardware store, but I wouldn't recommend that. It's probably not going to be work real
Starts
well.
at the
effective.
top.
Yeah.
Do they access the top from the ground? Or are they fly? Or
they fly. So
fly.
As an adult, they're a beetle and they can fly from tree to tree. And then towards the end of their life, they bore into the wood and lay eggs. And then when the eggs hatch, they're larvae, and then they feed on the wood underneath the bark. And that's where like all the water and nutrients are flowing up and down the tree. And so they basically girdle the tree, cut off all that as there's more and more larvae.
They're like wood ticks.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Oh, it is wood tick season. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
So if you on a dead tree, if you peel back the bark, you can see the
Is that those little like wiggly tunnels?
Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I gotta take some inventory on some of my trees. We don't have very many ash trees. Actually, I don't think we have a lot of pines, but I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah.
Cut down those diseased ones.
Is this something that if you don't treat your tree, just plan on losing it? Like it's just going to happen, and you're not going to get lucky, and it's just a matter of time.
Exactly. Yep. And then if you plan on not treating your tree and you just want to let it go, if it's a tree that overhangs your house, I wouldn't wait for it to die, because once a tree dies from emerald ash borer, it becomes very brittle and becomes very difficult to remove, and the cost of removal just goes up.
Mm-hmm.
That's great advice.
Danger zone goes up.
Yeah. Like for the company I work for, if a tree has emerald ash borer, we can't put a climber in the tree just because it's so brittle it could break apart while the climber's in there.
Sure. And you're talking about the job that you get paid for.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is tree related.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Sure. I'm a consulting arborist with the Davey Tree Expert Company. So basically I go out to people's homes, talk to them about their trees, give them recommendations on, pruning, removal, treatments of their trees, and just keeping their trees healthy.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine your company does the treatments.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So if they had questions or wanted to reach out to you, you guys work in the area, you're in the area, and
yeah. Davey Tree, we're nationwide. We're one of the largest and oldest tree care companies in the U.S. It was started in 1880 by John Davey in Kent, Ohio, and that's where our headquarters is, and we're 100% employee-owned, which is really cool. And then we have 3 offices in the Twin Cities. We have one in Plymouth, which services the Buffalo area, and then Eden Prairie, which is the office I work out of, and then South St. Paul.
Sure. Now, when I hear a couple $100 and the importance of having trees around, people like that, are there any resources for people to go to, whether it's the DNR or somewhere at the state, that might help with some of that cost or defray, or is it just, plan on losing your tree?
Yeah, unfortunately not. There's not resources right now for homeowners for treatment costs or removal costs or anything like that. At a conference I was at, Valerie McClanahan, who's the urban and community forester for the DNR, she had said she's possibly working on trying to get some grant funding to help homeowners, because if you have 10 ash trees on your property, it's a pretty big expense to get rid of those. And
yeah. I mean, it's kind of a public thing as well. I would look at it as like maybe the DNR maybe would put some importance on that of keeping that habitat. So
yeah, there is grant funding for communities to help manage ash trees. The city of Buffalo last year got a grant to do a tree inventory, so they know what types of trees they have, where they're at, along roads and parks and stuff like that. So the city knows where all their ash trees are, so they know how many they have and all that. So
sure,
they can kind of start budgeting for removal, or if they want to do treatments and stuff like that.
So do we have, we have a lot, right? It's a common tree. It's
one of the most common trees.
Yeah.
I don't know offhand how many the city of Buffalo has, but they know.
Yeah.
They have an
Sure.
idea now.
What are they climbing at Sturgis? I mean, are those
trees?
Ash. That's generally ash tree. I mean, are those maples or? I mean,
there are some oak trees that they're climbing.
Okay.
I think there's a basswood in there, hackberry. I think that was it.
hackberry.
And don't worry, with all the trees that they took out along Central, none of those were affected.
No, thankfully
So,
not.
yeah.
We're far enough in the park away from 25.
Yeah. I think that'll be interesting. It's going to be guaranteed great weather that day as well. We're putting up with all the crappy weather right now. So for that weekend, it's going to be a ton of people out and about.
Yeah, and with that event, the DNR is hosting the Festival of Trees, which is kind of like a Arbor Day, Arbor Month celebration, where they're going to have, trying to bring the community in. There's going to be a kids climb hosted by the University of Minnesota, where kids can put on a saddle, climb up a tree. There's volunteers helping them out, not just letting them go.
Knock yourselves out, kids.
The city, I believe, is going to bring their utility bucket truck down there and give bucket truck rides to kids and probably adults too. So, and then there'll be a bunch of not vendors, but booths out there, informational booths about trees and all that stuff. So,
sure.
And then there'll be food trucks and all that for the community to come down. The climbing event is going on all day. They split up the climbing groups into smaller groups, and so they're rotating between events, so you can check out each event. They're going on all day.
Very cool.
That is awesome. And this is not like minor league circuit of tree climbing. These are big league tree climbers that are serious about what they do, probably earn at least a portion of their income from traveling and competing. And
some of them are very intense competitors, but a lot of them it's just their daily job, and they kind of do the competition for fun. There is some climbers that they're maybe been climbing for 2 years and they want to try it out, but there are those top climbers that are competing to go to international competition.
Yeah. And how did this event end up in Buffalo?
That was my doing, being
Nice
a part
work.
of the Minnesota Society of Arboriculture, and I'm also on the park board for the city. I knew Sturges Park, the gem of a park it is, with the giant trees. I was like, we got to get this event to Buffalo, and they kind of move it around every year to different cities.
Yeah.
And so I brought the people that organize the competition. I brought them out to Buffalo and had them look at the trees, make sure they work for the competition, and they said yeah, and they loved it. And the city has been great with helping us reserve the park and being available to make sure the event goes off without a hitch.
Yes, they reserved it well in advance to looking for my own event, not to compete with your guys's, but I said I'm going to throw a shameless plug in here, and if we haven't lost them by now, or they're probably going to be listening. Yeah. But we also have an event over in, so it's going to be a full day of events over at Pulaski Beach. We're going to have food, hot dog games. We're doing a grill giveaway, so it'll be really fun. So a lot of things going around town at that point.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I would like to think that I could have become a pretty good tree climber, except our neighbor kid broke her ankle when we were climbing trees, and my dad put a kibosh to that. Now I think we're 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Again, when you think this massive tree that you're climbing, you're like, oh, I'm so high up here, probably 5 feet off the ground. But thank you, Devin, for breaking your ankle jumping out of a tree.
Yeah, it's funny. Being in the industry and knowing all the safety equipment and stuff you need when you get off the ground, when you get aloft, and I see my kids climbing my front yard tree, and it's like,
I'm sorry I got to do this, but I'm going to report you.
Yeah.
That's not safe.
That's funny.
So,
I think you could still climb a tree.
thank you.
I think you should compete. I'd sign up.
I'm busy that day.
Oh,
They should put amateurs next to the people who actually no. I've seen people climb up those trees, and when you get some tree care, you guys are kind of nuts. When you're up there, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch. And I went to school and I climbed trees recreationally. It's like, oh, this is so much fun. And then I did it for a summer, and you got a chainsaw in your hand, and you're cutting this big chunk of wood, and it's tied off, and it's like, yeah, this isn't for me. So I never did a whole lot of climbing.
Maybe I'll be the ground guy.
Yeah.
Give you a bid.
you're doing great.
Good job. There's Gatorade down here when you're done. So, Well, is there anything else that we missed that we could go over as we wind down?
I think just, if you hire a tree care professional, a certified arborist with the International Society of Arboriculture is always a good step of kind of knowing that they're knowledgeable about trees and they're not going to do harm to your trees and stuff like that. That's the one plug I have for that.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you very much for coming in. We really appreciate it. And Saturday, May 20th, down in Sturges Park is the tree competition. That whole weekend. So enjoy Saturday, Sunday, I should say. But for the Buffalo Community Podcast, I'm Tyler Reiss.
I'm Mark Benzer.
Ryan Gustafson.
Nailed it.
Thanks for listening to the Buffalo Community Podcast, produced by Edlund Media. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube, as well as anywhere you listen to podcasts.